Dear listeners, before we begin, I have a small request. If this story touches something in your heart, if you've ever been treated like you were useful but not valued, please tap like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments which city or state you're listening from. It comforts me more than you know. Now get comfortable, because what my own son texted me in the middle of my vacation still makes my stomach tighten. The low country sun doesn't shine, it presses, like a heavy hand on your shoulders, warm, relentless, and somehow personal. The air smells like salt sunscreen and old wood, and by afternoon even the cicadas sound exhausted, like they've been screaming their last. That day, I stood in the kitchen of my beach house, my sanctuary, cutting watermelon into neat triangles. The blade slid through the fruit with a soft, satisfying sound. I should have felt peace. I should have felt proud. Because this house, this place called Indigo Point, was not an inheritance. It wasn't luck. It was me. I designed it 20 years ago, when my hands didn't shake from fatigue and my back didn't remind me daily that time is winning. I argued with contractors. I fought zoning meetings. I chose every tile. Measured every beam. Fought for every window angle. I even insisted the terrace faced just right so the sunset would pour into the rooms like honey, without letting the midday heat ruin the interiors. And yet, that day, standing in my own kitchen, I felt like a guest. No, worse. I felt like a staff member who had overstayed her welcome. Outside on the terrace, under the pergola draped in purple wisteria, my guests sat at my dining table like royalty. Sterling, my son, sat with his shoulders slightly hunched, staring down at his plate as if eye contact with me would burn him. Across from him sat my daughter-in-law's parents, Thaddeus and Zenobia Vance. They weren't evil in a dramatic movie villain way. They were worse. They were comfortable. Comfortable in superiority. Comfortable in judgment. Comfortable in treating anyone outside their wealth, circle like background noise. Zenobia wore thick gold jewelry that clinked whenever she moved. She had that expression people wear when they're disappointed by everything. Food, service, weather, people. Thaddeus barely looked up. His phone was always in his hand, like the real world wasn't interesting enough to deserve him. And then there was Karis, my daughter-in-law. Karis sat at the head of my table, pouring wine like she owned the bottle and the house, and the air everyone was breathing. She wore a white dress that looked expensive in that effortless way. Her hair was perfect. Her smile was perfect too, but it never reached her eyes. Those eyes scanned my terrace the way a buyer scans a property, what can be removed, replaced, improved. I carried the tray of watermelon outside, placing it gently near their plates. Zenobia took one bite and immediately pressed her lips together. "The fish is a little dry," she announced loudly, as if I was running a restaurant and she was leaving a review. Thaddeus gave a tiny grunt, not even looking up. Karis laughed, a bright sound that didn't match the mood. "Oh, Mom." "Dad, don't worry," she said sweetly. "Sterling and I have plans. Big plans." She lifted her glass and pointed at my garden, my rose bushes, the ones I'd planted with salt-resistant varieties, the ones that survived storms. "This is all too old-fashioned," she said. "We need minimalism. Concrete glass. Clean lines. None of this messy nature stuff." She turned toward Sterling, smiling with teeth. "Right, babe?" A Sterling swallowed, nodding fast. Yeah, whatever you want." Something cold tightened in my chest. They were talking about changing my home. Not if or maybe, but as if the decision was already made. Karis didn't even bother looking at me when she called out, "Aaliyah, we're out of wine. Bring another bottle. And more ice. This ice has melted." She snapped her fingers, actually snapped them, in the air, and the Vances exchanged a glance, that tiny amused look that said, "Look at how she obeys." I stood still for a moment, tray in my hands, my mouth slightly open as if my body was waiting for my pride to wake up. But my pride had been trained for years to stay quiet. Because for years I had told myself, keep the peace, keep your son happy, don't create conflict, don't embarrass anyone. So I forced my voice steady. "I'll bring it." I turned and walked back inside. And the moment I was alone in the hallway, away from their laughter, away from their forks and wine glasses, I pressed my forehead against the cool wall. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. Not from fear, from a kind of humiliation that burns slow. "You can endure this," I whispered to myself. "They're leaving soon. A few more days," but deep down, I knew they weren't acting like guests who planned to leave. They were acting like people who had already moved in. When I returned with the wine, Zenobia watched me pour it like she was studying an employee. You do everything yourself? She asked casually. Sterling said you don't really have much to do these days. Retirement makes people restless. I didn't answer. I poured the wine, set down the ice, and felt something inside me pull tighter, like a rope stretched to the edge of snapping. Karis waved her hand. Oh, and since you're so good at errands, go grab fresh figs. And don't get the cheap olives this time. Her tone was sweet, but her meaning was sharp. I realized then. They weren't just disrespecting me. They were enjoying it. So I did what I always did when humiliation started to choke me. I left. I grabbed my bag and walked out without changing clothes, without explaining myself. Outside, the sun hit my face hard, but I welcomed it. Heat doesn't lie, people do. I walked toward the market, past the moss-covered oaks, past tourists, past laughing couples. The ocean smell grew stronger with every step, like nature was reminding me you belong to yourself. The market was alive. Vendors calling out, baskets overflowing with fruit, the smell of seafood and spice. I picked figs carefully, habitually choosing the best ones. Even after everything, my instincts still wanted to serve. And then my phone vibrated. A message from Sterling. My heart did that ridiculous mother thing, jumping with hope before reality had a chance to speak. Maybe he was apologizing. Maybe he finally saw it. I opened the text, and my world went quiet. Mom, we know this is your beach house, but Karis's parents feel uncomfortable. We want some alone time with them to discuss family business. Please move to a hotel until the end of the week. We'll pay. I reread it once, twice, 3 times. My fingers went cold. Your beach house, not your home, not your place. Just your beach house. Like it was a rental, a vacation asset, something flexible. And the part that cut deepest wasn't even the hotel request. It was the certainty behind it. The assumption that I would obey. That my place in my own home could be negotiated by a text message. People moved around me at the market, bumping shoulders, laughing, living. But I stood frozen, holding figs I suddenly realized no one in that house deserved to taste. Something in me changed. Not anger. Anger would have been hot, loud, emotional. This was colder, clearer, a quiet moment where the truth finally stopped wearing makeup. I looked at the screen again, and I whispered, "So this is who you are now?" Then I typed one word. Understood. And then I hit send. I didn't book a hotel. I didn't cry. I didn't call to argue. Because when you finally see the structure of betrayal clearly, you don't scream at the collapsing building. You walk away, and you decide what you will demolish next. I opened my contacts, scrolled to a name I hadn't called in years. Desmond Hale, luxury real estate. My thumb hovered for 1 second. Then I pressed call. The phone rang once, twice. Then his voice answered, surprised. Ems, Thorne. Wow, it's been a while. My voice came out steady. Desmond, I said, staring out toward the ocean. Are you still selling prime waterfront property? A pause. Then a professional chuckle. Why? Who's selling? I breathed in, and for the first time in a long time I felt powerful. No one's selling, I said. Not yet. Then I added, calm as stone, I am selling Indigo Point, and I need a buyer today. If you've ever been dismissed in your own space, if someone treated your home like a waiting room they could rearrange, then you'll understand why what I did next wasn't anger. It was architecture. When a foundation is rotten, you don't argue with the termites. You rebuild the entire structure. I stood in the market with my phone still in my hand, the screen glowing with Sterling's message like a small cruel lantern. Please move to a hotel. The words weren't just disrespect. They were a declaration. A declaration that my home was negotiable, that my presence was inconvenient, that my ownership was a technical detail. The vendor in front of me asked, Mom, you still want the figs? I looked down at the basket, dark purple figs. Perfect, soft, expensive, the kind Karis liked to eat while complaining about the humidity. I realized something in that moment. I was still shopping as if I had to earn my place in my own home, as if I needed to prove I was useful enough to exist. I set the figs down gently, like putting a lie back where it belongs. No, I said softly. I don't think I do. I turned away from the stall and walked straight past the crowd, past the sound of laughter and vacation music and tourists buying trinkets. My feet moved with purpose, not panicked, purposeful. Because when you finally stop begging to be respected, your body changes. Your shoulders lift. Your spine remembers it's yours. Your breath stops being an apology. I stepped into the shade of a live oak, pulled up Desmond Hale's contact, and pressed call. It rang twice. Ms. Thorne. Desmond's voice came through, surprised, the way people sound when they hear from someone they assumed was permanently quiet. Well, I'll be. It's been years. Less, I said. Desmond, are you still moving high-end waterfront properties? A short laugh. Always. What's going on? Who's selling? I stared out toward the ocean, blue, sharp, indifferent. I am, I said. Indigo Point. Silence, not polite silence. The kind where someone's brain is trying to reject what it heard. Olea Indigo Point. Your house, he finally said. My house, I repeated. Desmond exhaled slowly. Okay, that's big. A big doesn't cover it. You fought the county for that lot. You designed the place yourself. I remember, I said evenly. Are you sure? He asked, voice careful now. Do you want to talk about? I want a buyer, I cut in. Fast. As in, today. Another silence. And then his tone changed. Desmond wasn't my friend in that moment. He became what he always was at his core, a man who smelled opportunity like blood in water. Where are you? He asked. Near the market. Good. My office is 6 minutes from there, he said. Can you be here in 10? Yes. Ulia, he added softer. This is a major move. So was building it, I replied. See you in 10. I ended the call and started walking. Not back to the beach house. Not to Indigo Point. To Desmond's office. To the place where decisions become irreversible. The real estate office sat behind tall glass windows, air conditioned so cold it felt like a different planet. Inside, everything smelled like expensive coffee and quiet money. Desmond stood as soon as he saw me through the glass. He was older than I remembered. More gray at the temples, more weight around the middle, but his eyes were sharp. He looked me up and down, Lennon sundress sandals, no makeup, hair pulled back with salt on the edges. And yet I could see the question in his face. Why do you look like someone coming to court, not someone coming to sell? Olea? He said, stepping forward. Are you all right? I'm fine, I said, taking the seat across from him. Do you have a buyer? He blinked. You're not even easing into this, he murmured. No, I said. I'm not easing into anything. Desmond sat slowly, hands clasped. All right, Indigo Point is a crown property. But today isn't normal in my world. Showings, negotiations, inspections. My paperwork is clean, I said. Title is clear. No liens, no shared ownership. Sole owner. That made his eyebrows lift. You're sure about that? I don't guess about my own assets, I replied. Desmond studied me. I have to ask, he said carefully. Are you under pressure? Is someone forcing you? No, I said. And it came out sharper than intended. But someone is about to learn what pressure feels like. Desmond didn't ask again. Instead, he turned his monitor toward himself and started typing fast. Okay, he said. Cash buyers. In town, ready to move. He scrolled, muttering names under his breath like a priest reading scripture. Then he paused. His face changed. All right, he said slowly. There is one. Ooh. Titus Banks. The name landed heavy. I knew it. Everyone in this region knew it. Titus Banks was a developer out of Atlanta, famous for two things, paying cash and crushing people who got in his way. Desmond leaned in, lowering his voice like the walls might be listening. He's wealthy enough to buy Indigo Point twice, he said. Has been sniffing around that stretch of coast for years. He wants something turnkey, something he can occupy immediately. Then call him, I said. Desmond hesitated. I should warn you, he said. He's not gentle. If he smells desperation. I'm not desperate, I said. I'm decisive. Desmond stared at me for a beat. Then he nodded. He dialed. Put it on speaker. The ringtone sounded loud in the chilled office. A voice answered, deep, rough, impatient. Yeah, Mr. Banks, Desmond said quickly, forcing warmth. Desmond Hale here. We've met at the coastal fundraisers. A grunt. Spit it out, Desmond. Desmond swallowed. Indigo Point is available. The line went quiet. Then, stop. Desmond glanced at me. It's available today, he added. A low laugh rumbled through the speaker. You're joking. No, Desmond said, then cleared his throat. Owner is present and ready. Serious. Another pause. How much? Banks asked. Desmond looked at me again. I didn't hesitate. I wrote a number on a notepad and slid it across. It wasn't cheap. It wasn't kind. It was the number you demand when you're not selling a house. You're selling a boundary. Desmond's eyes widened. He whistled softly, then read the number aloud. On the phone, Titus Banks laughed again, this time sharper. If it's real, I'll pay it, he said. I'm 20 minutes away. Desmond sat up straight. You'll come for a showing, Banks said. I'm coming to decide if it's worth the drive. Then he added, casually, and if the house is as good as you say, I'll wire the money today. My pulse stayed steady, because my goal wasn't money. Money was just the weapon. My goal was the illusion in my son's mind that he could relocate me like luggage. Banks continued, I'll be at the gates in 40 minutes. The click. The call ended. Desmond stared at the phone like it had bitten him. Then he looked at me. Aaliyah, he whispered. What is happening? I didn't answer directly. I reached for the pen on his desk. Draft the intent letter, I said. He blinked. You want to sign now? Yes! He hesitated again. Once you sign, this becomes real. It's already real, I said softly. The disrespect was real. The entitlement was real. I'm just matching it with consequences. Desmond exhaled and slid the papers toward me. Letter of intent, he said, contingent upon immediate possession. Buyer requires premises vacated. Include that, I said. Desmond looked up sharply. Vacated meaning whoever is in the house needs to be out by closing. Yes, I said, voice calm. Immediately. He opened his mouth like he wanted to ask who was in my house. But something told him not to. He wrote, fast, and when he was done, he slid the papers over. My hands didn't tremble, because the shaking part of me, the part trained to apologize, had already died at the market. I signed, one stroke. Then another. Then a final signature that felt like a door locking behind me. Desmond stared. Then he swallowed. Okay, he said. We need to prepare for the showing. If Titus Banks is serious, he'll want proof, documents, keys, everything. Good, I said, standing. Meet me at the house. As we walked out, Desmond touched my arm lightly. Oh, Leah, he said, if you're doing this because of Sterling, are you sure you want him to see it unfold this way? I paused at the door. My eyes met his. Desmond, I said, my son already saw my worth. He just chose to ignore it. I pushed the door open. Outside, the heat slapped my face again. I inhaled and realized I wasn't suffocating anymore. But before we went back to Indigo Point, I made one more stop. Not because I wanted to look pretty, because I wanted to look untouchable. There's a difference between appearing confident and appearing unmovable, and when people have spent years seeing you as soft, you need symbols. Small ones, sharp ones. I stepped into a boutique near the marina. One Karis loved to window shop in while complaining about prices. The saleswoman looked at my sundress and probably assumed I was browsing. Then she looked at my eyes and straightened. How can I help you? I need a scarf, I said, and sunglasses. She nodded quickly. I chose an emerald scarf with a subtle gold thread, rich but not flashy. Something that said I have taste, and I don't need your approval. Then oversized tortoise shell sunglasses. The kind that hide exhaustion and display authority. At the counter, I paid without checking the price. Because what I was buying wasn't fabric, it was posture. Outside, I tied the scarf at my neck the way I used to when I stood in front of city councils defending my designs. And suddenly, I felt like myself again. Not Sterling's mom, and not Karis's inconvenience. Aaliyah Thorne, architect, owner, woman. My phone vibrated. Desmond. He's on his way, he said quickly. 15 minutes out. Good, I replied. I'm coming. I walked to the taxi stand, gave the driver the address to Indigo Point, and sat back. As we drove, the ocean flashed between trees like a moving mirror. My heart didn't race, it settled. Because this wasn't revenge. This was correction. If you teach people you are a hallway, they will walk through you. If you teach them you are a door, they will knock. Sterling had just reminded me, by text, that he believed I was a hallway. So I was going to become a door. And I was going to close. As the taxi turned onto the final private road leading to Indigo Point, I saw it. A massive black SUV already parked near the gate. Titus Banks. Desmond stood nearby, visibly nervous, and Titus, tall, broad, heavy with confidence, paced slowly with his phone in his hand like he owned the road. I stepped out of the taxi. Desmond hurried toward me. "Oh, Leah," he said quietly. "Are you ready?" I adjusted my sunglasses. "Yes." Titus Banks turned and looked at me, and I could feel his assessment from 10 feet away. Not judging my clothes, judging my spirit. He walked forward. "Ms. Thorne," he said, voice loud and smooth. "You don't look like a woman selling her dream house." I smiled slightly. "That's because I'm not selling a dream," I said. "I'm selling a problem." His grin widened. "I like problems," he said. "They pay well." I nodded toward the gate. "Then let's go inside." I unlocked the gate, and as it opened with a soft metallic click, I heard it louder, glasses clinking music. From my terrace. From my home. Karis's voice, bright and careless, floating through the air like she had already erased me. Titus tilted his head, amused. "Sounds like you've got company," he said. I looked at him. My voice stayed calm. "I do," I said. "And they believe I'm the one who should leave." Titus's eyes sharpened. "Do they know who I am?" "They're about to," I replied. I stepped onto the walkway leading to the house. Desmond followed. Titus followed behind us like a storm walking in a suit. And as we approached the glass doors, as the laughter grew louder, I realized something important. Sterling had asked me to move to a hotel. He wanted me out. But in exactly 1 hour, they wouldn't just want me out. They'd be begging for the marriage itself to end. Have you ever walked into your own home and felt like you were interrupting someone else's life? That's what Indigo Point felt like as I climbed the terrace steps. My emerald scarf cool against my neck, my sunglasses hiding everything I refused to give away. Behind me, Titus Banks moved like a tank disguised as a businessman. Desmond followed, clutching his folder like a life jacket. And in front of us, louder, glasses clinking. That lazy vacation arrogance that only exists when people think someone else is paying the bill. I placed my hand on the glass door handle and paused for exactly one breath, not because I was afraid, because I was savoring the moment right before the curtain lifts. Then I opened the doors. The sound died instantly. It was like I had shut off a machine. Sterling froze mid-sip, wine glass hovering near his mouth. Karis stopped laughing so abruptly her smile didn't know where to go. Thaddeus and Zenobia Vance, those two walking monuments of entitlement, sat stiff, their forks suspended over my red snapper as if even chewing had suddenly become illegal. They stared at me, like I was a stray animal that had somehow wandered back into the house it had been kicked out of. Karis recovered first, of course. She always did. Because people like her don't panic immediately. They perform first. "Miss Aaliyah," she said brightly, too brightly, standing up with that sweet, false smile she used when she needed control. "Oh, you're back. Did you forget something? Passport, medication." "Sterling said you were heading to the hotel." She took a step forward and reached into her purse. I knew what she was doing before the money even appeared. A crisp bill. A little offering. A public humiliation disguised as generosity. She held it out like she was tipping a maid. "Here," she announced loudly, making sure her parents heard. "For dinner. And a taxi. We'll handle things here." Zenobia gave a thin, approving laugh into her napkin. Thaddeus didn't even stand up. He just leaned back like a man watching a servant get corrected. Sterling didn't look at me. He stared down at the glass stem in his hand like if he focused hard enough, it would turn into a different reality. "Mom," he muttered, voice tight. "Please, we talked about this. Don't embarrass us. Just go." That word, go, hit me with the clean finality of a slammed door. Not because it hurt, but because it clarified. There are moments when love stops being confusing, when someone's loyalty becomes visible, and Sterling's loyalty in that moment was not to me. It was to comfort, to convenience, to the easiest path. I stepped forward past Karis's outstretched money like it wasn't even there. And then I spoke. Calmly, clearly, into the sudden silence. "Mr. Banks," I said. Titus stepped into view behind me, and the atmosphere changed. It wasn't just that he was big. It was the way he carried himself, like he'd never once asked permission to exist. His presence filled the space. The room adjusted around him. Karis's smile twitched. Zenobia's eyes widened. Thaddeus sat forward slightly, like his instincts finally recognized a predator. Titus looked around slowly, appraising everything like a man scanning a menu. "Well," he boomed, "this is a fine house." Karis's voice turned sharp. "Who are you?" Thaddeus stood up now, offended. "Exactly. Who the hell are you? Get out of here. This is private property." "Correct," Titus said, turning his head toward him with a lazy grin. "Private property." Then he looked at me. "You want me to do the talking, Miss Thorne?" "In a moment," I said. I took off my sunglasses, and when my eyes met theirs, there was nothing soft in them. No apology. No pleading. No maternal warmth trying to keep the peace. Just reality. "This is a showing," I said. Zenobia blinked. "A what?" "A showing," I repeated, steady, "for the sale of Indigo Point." Sterling's head snapped up so fast his chair scraped. "What?" he breathed. "Mom?" Karis laughed, loud and sharp. "Oh my God, she's lost it." She turned to her parents. "She's having one of her episodes. She does this. She gets dramatic when she's tired. Thaddeus narrowed his eyes at me. You're selling the house. Whose house? My house, I said simply. Karis's face hardened. This is our house, Titus chuckled. Lady, I just saw the paperwork at Desmond's office. It's in black and white. Aaliyah Thorne. Sole owner, no lineage, no shared title, clean as rain. Karis's mouth opened. No sound came out. I didn't give her time to recover, because when you deal with someone who's lived by manipulation, the worst thing you can do is allow them space to spin. I stepped toward the terrace table and reached into Desmond's folder. Then I placed the document down, slowly, deliberately, right in the center of the table. The original deed, the seal, my name, my signature, the year, the weight of paper that carries truth. I slid it toward Thaddeus. Read it, I said. You're old school. You respect documents. Thaddeus hesitated. His pride didn't want to. But his instincts, his builder's instincts, knew that paper matters. He picked it up, put on his reading glasses. And his face changed, not all at once. Gradually, like a man watching his own house catch fire in real time. Aaliyah Thorne, he read aloud, voice suddenly smaller, sole owner 2003. Zenobia leaned forward, squinting. Sterling stared at the paper like it was a corpse. Karis stepped forward fast. Dad, don't listen. Thaddeus raised his hand. The room went silent again. Because that hand didn't belong to a man who asked, it belonged to a man who commanded. He looked at Karis slowly. Karis, he said, voice deep. She swallowed. He held up the deed. Why does this say your mother-in-law owns the house? Karis blinked rapidly. Her brain scrambled for an exit. Because she's listed for taxes, she said quickly. We did it that way. It's common. Thaddeus's eyes tightened. Then where is the mortgage? Karis's voice rose in pitch. We pay it. We pay everything. It's complicated. No, Thaddeus said. It's not complicated. Money leaves a trail, and I've been paying $5,000 a month for 3 years because you cried and said you were drowning in a loan. Zenobia gasped. Thaddeus, Sterling's face drained of color. Karis turned white under her foundation. Thaddeus continued, each word heavier. 5,000. Every month. 3 years. He turned to Sterling, voice sharp. You knew about this. Sterling's mouth moved, but no sound came. He shook his head. I thought it was gifts. She said it was just help. Thaddeus turned back to Karis, stepping closer. So where is that money? Karis's voice snapped. On us! On our life! On things we needed? Needed? Thaddeus thundered. You needed designer bags. You needed luxury retreats. You needed to humiliate the woman whose house you were living in. Karis pointed at me, shaking. She's twisting it. She's jealous. She's always been controlling. Enough? I said quietly. It wasn't loud, but it sliced through the noise like a blade. Karis stopped mid-word. I stepped forward until I stood inches from her. You didn't just lie, I said calmly. You built your life on a lie. Then I turned to the Vances. I never took a penny from you, I said. Not $1. Zenobia's eyes filled with tears. Then where did our money go? Karis's chest rose and fell fast. She looked around, searching for a weak link, and like always, she found Sterling. She grabbed his arm. Tell them this is ours. Sterling, say something. Sterling stared at her hand on his arm, and for the first time, he pulled away. It wasn't dramatic. It was small, but it was visible, and Karis noticed. Her eyes flashed with panic, because manipulators don't fear anger, they fear independence. Titus cleared his throat loudly, glancing at his watch. All right, he boomed. This family therapy session is cute, but I've got places to be. He looked at me. Miss Thorne, are we closing or not? I smiled slightly. Oh, we're closing, I said. Then I looked straight at Karis. And you, every single one of you, have 45 minutes to vacate. Karis's voice became a shriek. You can't do that. Watch me, I said. Desmond pulled out the contract, placed it on the table, and Titus, without hesitation, picked up the pen he signed. That simple act sounded louder than any scream. Because paper doesn't argue. Money doesn't negotiate with feelings. And the moment his signature dried, the truth became undeniable. They weren't guests. They were trespassers. My phone vibrated. A bank notification. I looked down. 6 zeros. Funds received, I said, holding the screen up. Karis stared at it like it was a death sentence. Sterling whispered, Mom, but I didn't look at him. Not yet. Because part 3 wasn't about my son's remorse. It was about the moment Karis did what desperate liars always do. She reached for her biggest weapon. Her last card. And she played it. She placed a hand on her stomach, and with the confidence of a woman used to bending reality around her, she announced, "I'm pregnant." And in the silence that followed, I saw every face shift. Sterling hope, Zenobia tears, Thaddeus conflict, Karis triumph, and me, I looked at the table, at the empty champagne bottle, at her glass, at the wine she had been drinking all afternoon, and I knew exactly what I was going to do next. Because the most dangerous lies aren't about money, they're about babies. And I was not going to let her weaponize life to escape accountability. Not in my house, not in my story.